In the past few weeks, I've been testing the Possway T2. I've put this electric skateboard through more than 100 miles of testing to benchmark its capabilities and discover its shortcomings. And this is my full review of the Possway T2. Before we start, I just want to give a friendly disclaimer. I was sent this board by Possway for testing purposes, but I have not been paid to make this review, and Possway does not get any input on this video's production. They do not get to preview this video before it's posted either. Before we get into the hands-on performance test data, let's establish a quick overview of the Possway T2. The T2 is a budget-friendly introduction into the world of e-skating with a classic design, a sizable deck, and plenty of power to unlock as you gradually improve your riding skills. It's geared with two 480 watt hub motors, a 280 watt-hour battery, and 90mm polyurethane wheels. It has a distinct concave deck for maneuverability and 3mm shock-absorbing foam grip tape to dampen road vibrations. It all looks good on paper, but let's see how it performs in the real world and how it compares to similarly priced models. At the point of making this video, it retails at $449, but using our coupon code you can save $15. You can find that in the description. The Possway T2 is equipped with two 480 watt hub motors that yield an estimated top speed of 26 miles per hour. The speed can be gradually unlocked through 4 different speed modes on the remote control, and it is set to be able to handle up to 30-degree inclines when at peak power. Using my pro-grade performance logger, I went out to test the top speed. At 165 pounds, I was able to reach a speed of 23.8 miles per hour on a flat surface. While it isn't the 26 miles per hour like advertised, it stacks up very well against similarly priced models, just falling short of the slightly more expensive Skatebolt Tornado 2. Interestingly, however, the Possway T2 offers the best value in terms of speed versus cost out of the bunch. So if you want to have the ability to go fast without breaking your bank, the T2 may be your ideal match. On paper, two 480 watt motors should yield solid acceleration. I tested it out and I was able to go from 0 to 15 miles per hour in 4.65 seconds and from 0 to 20 miles per hour in 7.75 seconds. The full top speed was reached in 12.44 seconds. Comparatively, these stats are better than the Maxfind Max 2 Pro by a comfortable margin. It falls slightly short of the Skatebolt Tornado 2, which got to 15 miles per hour in 4.04 seconds. Unless you're really experienced on an electric skateboard, you will find the acceleration on the T2 to be more than enough. The acceleration in the fastest speed mode is almost enough to get the wheels slipping, so it definitely packs a punch. Depending on where you live, hill climbability may be very important to you. Possway advertises that this board is able to handle 30% grades. There's often a lot of misconceptions between percentages and degrees. 30% does not mean 30 degrees. It requires a bit of math, but actually it translates to a 16.7 degree incline, which the Possway T2 and any of the other boards mentioned can definitely handle. The steepest hill in my area is 24 degrees, which is very steep in general. I found that the Possway T2 was able to climb it with a speed of 7.2 miles per hour at full charge. Comparatively, the Tornado 2 hit 8 miles per hour on the same hill, while the Backfire G2 hit 5.5 miles per hour. And lastly, the Max 2 Pro snailed its way up at just 3.4 miles per hour. So the Possway T2 will definitely get the job done if you live in a hilly area. Range and battery performance is an important factor for many riders, and it's usually where the budget-friendly boards fall notably short of the more premium ones. As the battery is the single most expensive component of an electric skateboard, it's important to do your research and not just go off by the manufacturer's range specifications, as it's often an overestimation. It's also very important you make up your mind as to how much range you actually need, otherwise you may end up with the wrong purchase. Now, the Possway T2 has a 36 volts 7.8 amp hour battery, which translates to an effective capacity of 280 watt hours. That's more than the Backfire G2 and Max 10 Pro and 10% smaller than the Skatebolt Tornado 2 battery. If you stack the battery capacity up against the price, The Possway T2 actually wins once again, slightly beating the Tornado 2 and with the Max 2 Pro offering the least value. Battery capacity on paper is one thing, but actual battery performance and quality is just as important. So how far can you go on a full charge with the Possway T2? I set out to test this using my GPS data logger. I rode the battery empty on a full charge at 3 various speeds to see how far I could go. In the first test, I ride pretty much as fast as I dare most of the time, really prioritizing speed over range. This resulted in a range of 12.9 miles. In the second test, I ride like I would normally do when I'm just out cruising. This is more of a moderate average speed, and this is also what I consider the most useful real-life range test for others to compare to. In this test I got 15.8 miles on a charge. In the last test I really tried to push the range as much as I could by riding slowly from start to finish and minimizing stops and fast accelerations. This gave me a range of 17.9 miles. When stacking the results from the second test up against the bunch, it once again beats out the Backfire and Maxfind boards, while losing out slightly to the more expensive Tornado 2. Based on my knowledge of the industry as a whole and the models available, I would say that the T2 offers some of the best value in terms of range in the sub $600 price range. The Possway T2 has a relatively large deck that'll accommodate most riders. It measures 37 by 9.17 inches, and the official website states that it weighs 17.5 pounds, but I actually weighed it to be 19 pounds. Still, it's relatively lightweight considering the dimensions and the fairly large battery capacity. Giving it the benefit of the doubt, as the other boards may very well also be off from the specified weights, it stacks up very nicely to comparable models. The Backfire G2 doesn't have anywhere near the same amount of battery capacity, and the X-Wave Flex hub runs you about $200 extra. The deck has a distinct concave that I really like. It helps with control and traction and makes it quite easy to shift your weight safely if you want to carve. The deck also has a unique 3mm layer of foam grip tape set to absorb road vibrations. And I'd say it actually works pretty well to an extent. It's not magic or anything like that, but it does seem to dampen the ride a bit. The grip tape itself is actually quite nice. It provides solid grip without being the annoying old school type of grip tape that'll scratch your skin or clothes. As it is raised at the edges, I find that it's a little prone to taking damage compared to flat grip tape that's been sanded down. The deck itself is made of 5 layers of Canadian maple and 2 layers of fiberglass. It feels super strong, and the 2 layers of fiberglass help to reduce the weight slightly. It isn't as flexy as some of the bamboo decks I've tried, but it's still plenty more than the likes of the Tornado 2. It's a solid midway that mitigates quite a lot of road vibrations without compromising stability at higher speeds. In my opinion, the level of flex on this board is very suitable for newer riders who are still finding their way and personal preferences in the e-skating scene, as it's a very balanced midway of flex and stiffness. You have about 4.45 inches of ground clearance up to the deck itself, but only 2.09 inches up to the battery enclosure, which may be worth noting for heavier riders when going over things like potholes or down a curb, as the battery housing could potentially scratch against the ground. As I'm a 165-pound rider, I didn't have this issue myself, but I imagine that riders over 220 pounds should be a little more wary in this regard. The T2 uses 90 by 52mm SHR urethane wheels with a solid balance between softness and durability. They have an 82A durometer rating, which is right down the middle for balancing grip, durability, and shock absorption along with speed. Personally, I prefer riding on 90mm wheels like these or 96mm ones, as it makes it much easier to go over cracks and small obstacles. They've been doing their job well, and after about 100 miles of riding, I haven't really noticed much wear on them at all. There isn't much to say about the truck and bushing setup. It's a fairly generic 45-degree 7-inch truck setup. It's responsive and stable, but not as smooth as some of the higher end boards, which is expectable at this price. After about 30 miles, I loosened up the trucks a bit, and that helped make the ride more comfortable overall with better shock absorption. Now, I was a little confused by the way the grip tape was placed. I'm not sure if it was a printing error with this batch or if it was intentional, but usually you will have the logo text pointing towards you, so it's readable when you ride it, and in this case it wasn't. You always want to make sure you have the motors at the back and not the front, so just make sure you check which way you're riding to get the optimal performance and stability. Lastly, it has an IP54 weatherproof rating, which means it's protected against splashes and most dust, so if you ever get caught in the rain, the board should survive just fine. The ESC is the brain of your electric skateboard. This is where the functionality and reliability comes from. This functionality is extended into the wireless remote from where you can operate your board. The Possway T2 uses a wound ESC, and this is also used by brands such as Team G, Blitzart, Maxfind, Skatebolt and Leica. This means that a lot of these entry-level boards essentially work the same way. It also means that whatever pros and cons the ESC has may very well apply to a wide range of models across all of these brands. I'm pleased to say that most of the way this ESC works very nicely. There's solid speed linearity, smooth acceleration, and using the OLED remote you can choose between 4 different speed modes. The ESC also features cruise control, which can be super useful on those longer rides. Additionally, you can also toggle between 4 different braking modes, which is a really nice feature to have. It's something I feel every e-skateboard should have because as a beginner, you want more forgiving braking until you get enough experience to stop on a dime in braking mode 4. The only slight issue I found with the ESC is that the initial braking can feel a bit abrupt, even when you're in the lowest braking mode. While the braking curve itself is pretty linear, it does feel jumpy right when you engage it, which is definitely something I hope they'll address in the future. Ideally, braking should be completely linear and smooth right from the beginning to the end, but in this case it does kick in a little abruptly. To be fair, a lot of budget-friendly boards suffer under this issue, but that doesn't make it any less daunting when you're just trying to go slowly downhill. All in all, a solid ESC, but there's room for improvement with the initial braking. Now, the remote itself feels really nice. It's shaped nicely to ensure a comfortable and strong grip, and the trigger-style throttle feels smooth. It has an OLED display that shows remote and board battery levels, the current speed, along with an odometer. In these settings you can toggle between imperial and metric units, and a small detail that's often overlooked is the attachable wrist strap. It's just added safety, which is nice to see. All in all, the Possway T2 is a very good budget electric skateboard. It's definitely amongst the top contenders as far as value goes, and it balances different use cases quite well throughout its build. It has plenty of range and speed for the majority of skaters, and with several speed and braking modes, it serves as a solid option for both beginners and well-versed riders. I especially like the concave deck and the fairly large 280 Wh battery capacity, and it doesn't feel too heavy to carry around either. The board isn't perfect. As with any budget option, there's likely a few drawbacks. In this case, I'd say that the slightly abrupt initial braking is the biggest con, but overall I think the pros outweigh the cons greatly. After all, this type of jumpy braking is seen across a wide range of entry-level boards. I have also ridden boards with better shock absorption and smoother truck and bushing setups, but the stability is quite good at high speeds and it's pretty easy to carve as well. All in all, I find the Possway T2 to be an excellent budget choice. It's definitely amongst the best in its price range. Alright, that marks the end of this review. If you have any questions, feel free to post them below. We've got a lot of e-skate reviews right around the corner, so be sure to subscribe if you're interested in seeing those. If you want to support the channel and get the Possway T2, feel free to use our affiliate link along with our exclusive discount code at the top of the description. Thanks for watching.